on Tide 100.9.
Focus on what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. Think about that. Don't think about how you feel, how tired you are, how hot it is. You got to push yourself on the field when you're playing football.
It's my honor to present the National Championship Trophy to Coach Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide.
To me, this is the ultimate team. All these guys bought into everything they needed to do to be the best players that they could be. There's more togetherness on this team than almost any team that we've ever had. And they had to overcome and persevere so much adversity through this season, and they've done it magnificently. And I'm so proud of this group for what they've been able to accomplish and going undefeated and winning the national championship.
Streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the Tide 100.9 app. Here is your host of Off the Edge, Jacob Harrison.
Your man overthrown. Spit out the ball.
Hello there. Good morning. Welcome in to Off the Edge, Tide 100.9. Wow. It is a great day to talk Alabama football. We'll do it for the next 56 minutes here on your home for Alabama sports. Available on the Android and Apple devices through the Tide 100.9 app. It is Mac Jones time. The New England Patriots have cut Cam Newton. That's surprising. And in turn named Mac Jones their starting quarterback. Equally as surprising. No? Hey, there's a first time I was wrong. I was wrong. So many people were wrong. Michael Bronner, the resident Patriots fan, raises his hand. He was wrong. We were all wrong. Cam Newton did not win the job and in turn did not retain a spot on the roster. I had the thought for much of the offseason that Mac Jones could very well win the job in training camp, which it was very, very clear that he did. Very, very clear that has been the case. But I thought that if he did, Cam Newton would probably still be the starter because I look at that week 4 matchup, not week 1 or 2 or 3, week 4, when the GOAT, Tom Brady, rolls back into Foxborough, plays at Gillette Stadium in different colors. You don't want some missed perception on Mac Jones. And, I was telling Gary as we were switching out that, Mac could play really well in that game. Jones could have 220 yards and 1 touchdown, but lose to Tom Brady because he had 350 and 4, right? And the Buccaneers mollywop the Patriots because simply they're the better football team, and that Boston fans and Boston media wouldn't take it. That they'll come up with something to label this misconception on Mac Jones. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, there's still, there is a possibility that Mac Jones and the New England Patriots do beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a month's time. Not likely, but hey, you don't know until you know. What at the same time, though, before we look too far ahead, week 1, Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, the first of many between these two in a rivalry type setting. It didn't take long after Mac Jones was drafted 15th overall by the Patriots to realize, this means twice a year it's Mac versus Tua. And I've already got it in my mentions. The best Alabama quarterback ever versus Tua Tagovailoa. And listen, that's irrelevant. We're a team here. And that's empirically false anyway. But regardless, it's something more to enjoy for Alabama fans because this time last year, even with Tua going 5th overall and Jalen Hurts going early in the 2nd round, Alabama had 0 starting quarterbacks, just as they had for the past 15, 20 years, right? Outside of a handful of opportunities for AJ McCarron and Brody Croyle. This season, they go in with 9% of the NFL, 3 starting quarterbacks from the University of Alabama, all played on the same team in 27. Come on, man. Come on. Roll damn Tide.
Are you ready for me to ruin this for you?
I wouldn't be shocked.
Is this really going to last a long time? Because I think Tua is going to. Sorry, excuse me. I don't think Tua is actually going to be with Miami for too much longer.
Oh, shut your mouth.
No, you don't
Shut
know
your
that
mouth.
though, because now I'm sure Tua wants to be, and it's the right choice to have Tua starting for Miami, but it seems like Miami isn't like fully invested in Tua. Plus, also, side note, it's worth noting that while it was like 90% because Mac Jones beat him for the starting job, people are saying that this is not purely because he won the starting position. I mean, Gary said that apparently sources are saying that this might have to do a little bit because of Cam Newton's stance on vaccination.
I think it does have a little bit to do with it, but it has more to do with Mac Jones being ready.
That's why
Cam Newton was still the starter all throughout training camp. The fact that Cam Newton did not win the job, coupled with that fact that he may not be available at some point because of that stance, it's the NFL. It's a business. You ain't got to like it. That's the reality of the world that we live in right now. Suck it up, Buttercup. Either get the shot or don't. That's your prerogative, but you can't get pissy at the NFL for making sure that they have players on their roster that are definitely going to be available to them or have a higher % chance of being available to them. That's all I'm going to say on that. But the point still stands. Mac Jones did win the job. Regardless of Cam Newton's personality quirks or how he pairs nicely, or excuse me, how weird of the pairing it is that Cam Newton and Bill Belichick are what they are. Mac Jones won the job based on his performance. And a lot of people, he only threw 1 touchdown in preseason. It's the damn preseason, my guy. Mason Rudolph for my Steelers didn't lead any scoring drives, and Dwayne Haskins led about 7 of them. Guess who's still the backup quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? It's Mason Rudolph, because it's a business, and sometimes perception may not always be reality in the NFL, and sometimes you just kind of have to live with that. And on that same front, concerning Tua Tagovailoa and a potential trade for Deshaun Watson, I'm not here for it. I would very much like it if the Dolphins, and we'll discuss this a little bit with AJ Spurr in about 5 minutes. I would very much like it if the Miami Dolphins would just come out and say they're not interested in trading for Deshaun Watson. But the fact that they haven't leaves that door open. Today is the final cut day, but the trade deadline is still 8 weeks from now. Or excuse me, 10 weeks from now. So you've still got time to make that happen. And hey, if you want to wait until next season, that's fine. But by next season, you're going to know that Tua Tagovailoa, much better quarterback than last year. Tua Tagovailoa, set to be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL because he's got weapons, he's got an improved offensive line, he's got improved running backs. Everything's looking up for him. Not to mention that defense should still be just as good with Brian Flores at the helm, one of the best coaches in all of football as well. That gives you a great opportunity to have an exciting rivalry for the next 10 years. And instead of being like Bryant and poo-pooing on it, let's just gear up to be excited about it. Alabama versus Alabama twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year for the next 15. Give it to me. Let's go. That's exciting. That is exciting. You know what else is exciting is in 4 days, the Alabama Crimson Tide will take on the Miami Hurricanes. And in 4 minutes, we will talk to Roll Tide Wire editor AJ Spurr and get his thoughts on the Alabama Crimson Tide taking on the Hurricanes. Of course, he's down there in Miami. He's very close to the fans there. Has a good understanding of what's going on with the green and orange in Coral Gables. And hey, speaking of Coral Gables, Bryant, you would be proud of me. I watched part 1 last night of the U. Gotta say, I knew a lot of the story already. But that said, it was still very, very good. And I appreciate, the fact that I watched it. So I can at least say that I've seen part 1. I'll watch part 2 tonight.
Is Seventh Floor Crew in that in the part 1 or is that part 2?
No, that I guess that's part 2. I don't know what that is. Yeah, but hey, progress is progress, and I've made a slight bit of progress on a Monday night. So, and you know, if you go to Tide 100.9, you realize that my article was published at 12:30 a.m. Just know that was why. I also watched a weird documentary on Bob Ross on Netflix. It's like one of the top 10 things they've got on Netflix right now. What a super sad story. So if you're up for that, you know, not that I'm advertising anything, I'm, you know, just trying to fill in the days and the hours until we're in Atlanta, Georgia for the kickoff game between Alabama and Miami. AJ Spurr is next here on Off the Edge. Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama sports.
Don't miss a play at the Sportsbook at Pearl River Resort. Your front row seat to all the action. Place bets on all professional and most college sports at the counter, kiosk, or on your phone. Then catch the game on one of our 20 big screens from the comfort of the newly remodeled Timeout Lounge. Plus, the PRR Sports app gives you access to live, in-play sports betting. Sportsbook at Pearl River Resort. Be more than a fan. Be a player. Must be 21.
Touchdown! Alabama wins!
The Alabama football countdown clock is driven by Crawford Insurance, Tuscaloosa's low-cost auto insurer. Call 752-6489 for a free quote today.
Well done! Well done!
There are 4 days until Alabama football.
Dominate!
5G is here, but the big carriers want you to sign a pricey long-term contract to get access. Well, not anymore, because Straight Talk Wireless has rolled out 5G coverage nationwide, with plans starting at just $35 a month and no contract. Plus, get a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G for $299, all on America's best networks. 5G coverage, 5G phones, less money. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
Start fall with everything to do business better during Dell Technologies Labor Day event. Save up to 45% on select business PCs with Windows 10 Pro. Power your workday with savings on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and other accessories, plus free shipping on everything. Do more with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro. Call 877-ASK-DELL for a Dell Technologies advisor who can help you find the right tech. That's 877-ASK-DELL for business specials during Dell's Labor Day event.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Mostly cloudy and breezy, rain at times this afternoon and tonight. Today's high 77, the low tonight 69. Tomorrow, lingering showers ending early, becoming partly sunny, the high 80. Thursday, sunny and less humid, the high at 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 74 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
We aren't going anywhere. Off the Edge is available in the podcast center on Tide100.9.com.
And we're back here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Let's head out on to the phone lines. Welcome in our good buddy, AJ Spurr, the editor of Roll Tide Wire. So many other responsibilities as well, and we'll get into those very, very soon. AJ, though, man, it has been a hell of a busy morning already. Mac Jones and Tua Tagovailoa are now set to meet here in week 1. We did not expect this, but we're getting it anyway, and it's going to be a lot of fun. How you doing, man?
Well, I was doing okay. Now my brain's kind of fried after seeing all these notifications I'm getting from Schefter and Rappaport, just nonstop, one thing after the other. Cannot tell you how excited I am for week 1. Heck, I was excited to see Tua to begin with. Now we have former starter v backup playing divisional rivals. We'll get to see this 2 times a year, every year for who knows how long. I'm about as excited as I could be, Jake.
Man, it's really, to me, like, it's still hitting me, like, how surprising it kind of is that, because for the longest time I thought if Mac Jones was going to win this job in New England, it was going to be a situation where he's still got to wait behind Cam until Cam loses the job. I figured that would be the Bill Belichick way, but once again, he has found a way to surprise us and show us that there's a new way of doing things, and sometimes patience ain't it. You got to go out there and throw out Mac Jones. Do you think that, the way the Patriots are built, though? I mean, yes, he's got Damian Harris in the backfield with him, best friends, and full Alabama field, but that wide receiving core for New England, kind of a question mark for Cam Newton last year. Is it improved enough to allow Mac Jones to have some success as a rookie with a plus 900 on the odds for him to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and try to have some success against the Buccaneers when they come into town in Week 4 with Tom Brady?
Well, let me put it this way: if there's a front office in the NFL to, have a blueprint or a roadmap good enough to follow, to get them to the Super Bowl, it's going to be the New England Patriots. I think a lot of teams make the mistake of starting with, a running back or wide receivers, offensive line. The Patriots say, you know what? No, we're going to go ahead and get our quarterback. We're 2 years removed, not even, from Tom Brady leaving the Patriots to go to the Buccaneers. Granted, in that one season, he's already won a Super Bowl, and the Patriots have, seen Cam Newton come and go on 2 singular 1-year deals. But they went out, they got Mac Jones. That's clearly the guy they wanted. And now this season, it may not pan out to be the, Super Bowl Patriots all over again. And this might be a year to just kind of sit back and watch and see what Mac Jones can do with the hand he's been dealt. But I think that they're confident in Mac Jones enough to, regardless of how he performs this season, to go out and get the weapons he needs. The Patriots have the defense. Damian Harris is clearly their guy in the backfield. Their offensive line isn't terrible. I think they're a few pieces away from being back in contention, not only to win the AFC East, which, Jacob, hurts me to say personally, but I think that they're in contention for, well beyond just divisional champion if they go ahead and follow the roadmap that they followed in years past.
Before we get to your Dolphins, though, and Tua and the latest concerning him, this is even. I always feel blasphemous because I praise Cam Newton more on these airwaves than anybody else. But truth be told, I mean, a great quarterback in his day. The injuries piled up last year when he caught COVID. It kind of derailed the season after having such an incredible performance against the Seahawks in a losing effort in Seattle. This year, his unavailability because of the mix-up in the COVID protocol, his stance on the vaccines, all of that being what it is, this close to the start of the regular season, a lot of teams popping up. I see it on Steelers Twitter. Houston, the Washington football team trying to get back with Ron Rivera, all these different sorts of things. But Cam Newton's a 10-year vet in the NFL, and for the second straight season, there's zero confidence in him being a starter. What do you think is next for the guy that won the Heisman Trophy over on the Plains?
Well, it's really complicated because you have to ask yourself, was this move by the New England Patriots 100% about his level of play? And if it is, then you know what? I'm agreeing with you. Maybe there's a lot of teams out there right now that could see him as the next Ryan Fitzpatrick, the next traveling quarterback. It's sad to say that he's only been in the league 3-4 years, but Josh Rosen is already assuming the role of a traveling quarterback. So if we're just talking about play, sure, Cam Newton might just be bouncing around, from team to team. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Texans will go ahead and try to scoop him up. So that way they don't have to work with Tyrod Taylor all season long. Maybe they can work something out with Cam long term. However, we also need to take into account, Jacob, like you said, Newton's stance on the vaccines, on protocols, on certain things like that. I mean, we've already seen with the Buffalo Bills, Isaiah McKenzie and Cole Beasley especially being someone who's very outspoken and anti, protocols and vaccines and things like that. They've already been fined. Isaiah McKenzie actually went out and got his first dose of the vaccine shortly after that. Hefty fine. But you got to wonder if for the Patriots, cutting Newton here was more of a locker room deal. when it comes to COVID protocols and things like that. I mean, undoubtedly, Jones outshined Cam all throughout the preseason and mainly through reports that I've seen out of training camp too. But you have to think if maybe there has to do with something regarding vaccines and protocol, opinions within Newton that ultimately led to this, because cutting him outright was, a shocking move. I think everyone can agree upon.
Yeah, Brian Hoyer is now Mac Jones's backup quarterback, and that is not an ideal situation if you're a Patriots fan. But at the very least, and last thing on Cam Newton, he showed that he was a good teammate. For outwardly in public, and sure, perception may not always be reality, whatever. But because I leaned on that argument earlier, because that's what I do is I go back on my arguments. But Cam Newton was always vocal and always visual. Last night when they played last against the Giants to close out the preseason, Cam Newton was, there's the video of Cam Newton tracking down Mac Jones to make sure he got a high five in. So I think his support of Mac Jones should be noted and praised, and it should kind of get some people off of his back and at least show that if he's not the backup quarterback in New England, maybe should be a backup somewhere.
He'll definitely serve a very important role, whether that be on the field, on the sidelines, or in the locker room. But no doubt in my mind, Cam Newton will 100% serve a very, very important purpose on someone's team this upcoming season.
Talking to AJ Spurr, the editor for USA Today Sports, Roll Tide Wire, covering Alabama football, and the director of football operations for Tribe Sports Agency. All right. Your Dolphins have got to stop this back and forth thing with Deshaun Watson. We're trading for him. We're not trading for him. We want great athletes. We don't want people that are in trouble. We want high character guys, but we're willing to give up 3 first-rounders for this guy. And Tua's the future. Tua may not be the future. Come on, man. Just let Tua be the starting quarterback in 2021 without any controversy. Don't you agree?
Oh my goodness, 100%. My biggest thing with this is, the Dolphins have always been consistent in their stance regarding rumors and, things like that with trades and free agency. It's always just been, we're dealing with the players we have on our team right now. And, anything else moving forward, you'll hear from our front office, yada, yada, yada. Okay. However, I do think in an instance like this, where such a high profile player that you would be trading for, not only for his on the field talent, but for the sexual misconduct allegations off the field, as well as having such a talented college quarterback that didn't have a good rookie season, that the entire nation now has their eyes turned upon. I think in an instance like this, you have to make an exception to what typical protocol is for, press conferences and such. Because remember, Brian Flores is a disciple of Bill Belichick. So, how Bill Belichick handles the media. Brian Flores learned a thing or two from him. But if there were to be a time to have an exception to that kind of protocol or policy regarding media and press conferences and stuff like that, it's got to be something like this. This has been something that has been dragging on for months and months and months. We are less than 2 weeks away now from the NFL regular season kicking off. Tua has been the starter for this team since week 9 of last season, and that has been undisputed by anyone on the Dolphins organization and coaching staff. And here we are now, days away from him, facing off against Mac Jones in Foxborough, Massachusetts. And we're still talking about this. So I don't like how it's been handled. As far as the rumors go for the trades, I've heard theories, left and right regarding why they would do it, why they wouldn't do it, what they're offering, what, where these rumors are coming from and this and that. I'm not believing anything until I see an official report about, what was offered, what was declined, or if a trade actually does go through and what happens.
September 12th, a day that's going to be remembered, one that Alabama fans definitely need to write down. But September 4th is much closer, and the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Miami Hurricanes are set for what I think will be a competitive showdown. Some exciting players on both sides of the field. But let's dive into first the Alabama depth chart, which was released yesterday around noonish. Were there kind of any surprises for you, AJ, on the depth chart? I know Billingsley at third was one that kind of caught my eye.
Well, the Paul Tyson camp was very shocked that Bryce Young was named the starter of the Crimson Tide. No, in all honesty, there wasn't anything that truly shocked me. I know a lot of people were talking about Cameron Latu at tight end, and what kind of role he's going to serve this upcoming season. Other than that, the only other storyline I'd like to point out is Jalen Milroe changing his number to number 2. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's a wise decision. One thing to monitor though is that Ajayi Hall had to change his number from 17 to 84. That doesn't sound like a positive. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. But looking on the offensive line though, we were kind of thrown aback a couple of days ago when Nick Saban said that there was competition at center. And maybe that competition was brought on by the difficulties at right tackle with Kendall Randolph being injured and his primary backup being a true freshman in J.C. Latham. Let me ask you outright, AJ, would you prefer Owens at center and Randolph at right tackle once he's healthy, or would you prefer Owens at right tackle with Damian Dalcourt at center, giving you maybe just a tad bit better player, across all 5 positions, but you kind of sacrifice that experience at center? What say you?
I'm going to be outright honest with you, Jacob. My answer is I would prefer Owens to start at center in the beginning of the season and then adjust accordingly. Now, having been a bigger kid growing up and playing offensive line, it's a position that is often overlooked by myself, and I wish I had the knowledge of you and Cole Kubelik to make these analytical, adjustments and movements and talk about it and so forth. So I may have to take a few lessons from you as soon as we get off here. Maybe I'll call Cole Kubelik up on the phone to learn a little bit more. But my brain sees, big man make block. So as long as you have the healthiest and most able person getting the job done, and I look at players like Bradley Bozeman and Ross Pierce-Baker, who were so versatile on the line for Alabama that you almost get greedy as a Crimson Tide fan because there's no true left tackle, right tackle, especially when we just had a lefty quarterback, and then transition right back into a righty quarterback with Mac Jones. I feel like as an Alabama, fan, viewer, whatever you may call it, you get kind of greedy with how versatile the offensive linemen are for Alabama, because if one guy goes down, all it takes is one shift, one swap, one change, and it's like nothing ever happened. And like Manny Diaz said, this Alabama offensive line might as well be an NFL caliber offensive line.
Hey, at the very least, it's a first world problem to have, to question whether or not your most experienced player should be playing center or right tackle in lieu of some talent behind him at center. Well, let's look at the wide receiving core then. The wide receiving core for Alabama starts with John Mechie, but then after that, it's kind of a lot of guys vying for position, vying for playing time, and vying to be featured pieces in this. Slade Bolden may be, that quote unquote number 2 guy, but I'm still looking at the fact that he's only got 1 career touchdown. Who kind of excites you out of the wide receiving core as we head into this matchup with Miami?
Somebody that actually excited me the second he got on campus was Trayshawn Holden. And I know that's not a name too many people have heard recently, and I know that's not a name that's all too big heading into this season as someone that's vying for, that wide receiver 2 spot below Mechie. But Trayshawn Holden is a name to watch out for, and I think if given the opportunity, much like Billingsley had last season, not too many people knew who Jaleel Billingsley was heading into last season. He gets a ton of opportunities, he makes the most of it, and boom, all of a sudden Jaleel Billingsley is now in talks for being a first-round pick for the 2022 NFL Draft. I think Trayshawn Holden as a wide receiver is going to have a similar experience if given the opportunity. In terms of players that I think will have a legitimate shot at being wide receiver 2 right out the gate after the first game, it's got to be a G.A. Hall, a Guy Hall. Jacob, please help me with that one.
Ajayi.
I've heard it. Ajayi. Okay, I've heard it 6 different ways these last few days, and I just need to make sure I'm getting it.
Hey, you're not alone. Certainly, I with the Jai, I mean the incredible spring game, but it's kind of been quiet on that front. I'm looking forward to Jamison Williams, man. You don't transfer into Alabama and then just give you number one. You kind of have to have a precedent set to be ready to be a featured player, and Saban's hinted to as much. Looking at Miami, though, all eyes are on their number one, De'Aaron King. Obviously the best player on their team, and it's really not even close. That being said, I fully anticipate him to make plays. Playmakers make plays. The rules are in favor of offensive players to do their absolute best and impact the game as much as they can. But does he have enough help around him, wide receiver, offensive line, running back, to really put his best foot forward?
Well, Jacob, I'm actually going to answer that by talking about the Miami defense. And I'm going to circle back, don't worry, to De'Aaron King. I'm down here in Miami. Everybody that surrounds me here is representing the U. It's green and orange everywhere I look. All right. And all they talk about is their defense. Well, Bryce Young, this and that, our secondary is going to do this, that, and the other. And that's great. I do think that the Alabama offense and Miami defense is going to be fun to watch. I think it's a matchup that is going to, perform well. I think a lot of people are going to be entertained by that. That being said, if we're canceling out the Alabama offense and Miami defense, let's flip the coin here and look at the Alabama defense versus the Miami offense. Jacob, not only does De'Aaron King not really have any true weapons to throw to, besides maybe a first-year transfer, Charleston Rambo, that Miami just landed out of Oklahoma, but this Alabama defense is, one of the best in recent history for Alabama. I'm super excited to see what this defense does to teams like Texas A&M, an offense like Ole Miss. I cannot wait for that. And the fact that I'm excited to see this defense perform against these high caliber offenses, should tell you my thoughts on what this defense is going to do against the Miami Hurricanes. And I think it is just going to be a mess for De'Aaron King, Manny Diaz, and Lashley. Okay, I don't think that this offense gets off the ground fast or at all, really. I think Miami stays low scoring, and as long as Alabama can get through the Miami defense a few times, I think it'll be cruising.
That's I've kind of been in the same boat, not gonna lie. Like it's tough to even looking through Miami and trying to figure out where their playmakers are. So many of them are unproven, but it's not like Alabama where if there's an unproven commodity, you just kind of expect based off the tendencies and the nature of what Alabama is to perform in the manner that they do. And with Miami, that precedent kind of doesn't exist. But looking at the defense for Miami, you can kind of point to Bubba Bolden as the best player on their defense, and that historically this is a team that brings a good pass rush. They do have some talent up front. Interestingly, though, Alabama has 4 5-stars in the defensive front, and Miami doesn't have a single one on their defensive line. Who's going to help Bubba Bolden kind of to manage the middle of that field and try to slow down guys like Bryce Young and Brian Robinson?
The secondary is going to have to work as a unit. The Miami the Miami defensive front lost, Gregory Rousseau, who didn't even play last year. They lost Jalen Phillips. Okay, they lost a lot of experience, leadership, and truly the defensive front there is going to be what Alabama targets the most, especially considering Bryce Young is still super, super young, no pun intended, and the Alabama running back room is absolutely loaded. So I do think that Saban and Bill O'Brien are targeting that Miami defensive front as the weakness to exploit for this game. But the Miami secondary needs to step up, and they also need to be proactive in the run game. They need to be stronger as a unit because they don't really have much film on Bryce Young. Keep in mind, they don't know what to expect. Neither do we, or Alabama fans in general, know fully what to expect from Bryce Young in his first true start as the helm of the Crimson Tide offense.
Talking to AJ Spurr, writer for USA Today Sports, Roll Tide Wire. the editor of USA Today Sports Roll Tide Wire, covering Alabama football, director of football operations for Tribe Sports Agency as well. AJ, I know you have your unqualified, unasked for score predictions before every game, so I won't ask you to do that today, but I will ask, kind of your general thoughts. I know we're at the end of the interview, but your general thoughts on the game and maybe a surprise that you're looking for. What the big thing that you're looking for from Alabama in their season opener out in Atlanta, Georgia?
Well, one thing I'd really, really like to see, and I'd be happy with at the end of the game, is if we did get to see what Bryce Young is capable of. I just mentioned Alabama will likely be, pounding the run game heavy for this matchup, just because that's what's favorable, and that's probably what's going to get Alabama the yardage. That's what's going to get them into the end zone for 6. But I don't think that should mean they fully limit Bryce Young. I mean, if there's going to be a time for this kid to, have an introduction into the national college football realm, why not let him show out against a Power 5 opponent that at one point was extremely relevant? I mean, Alabama versus the U, Bryce Young's debut. Let's see it. Let's see what he can do. I mean, I know a lot of people call it joyless murder ball, and I'm not condoning that. But why not, run it up just a little bit? Why give him a show? Let people see truly what Bryce Young is capable of, because from all the Miami fans that I've spoken to, they don't believe Bryce Young is A, good quarterback, and B, anything close to what everyone's been cracking him up to be. So I think that this would be a great way for him to be introduced to the world, while also kind of quieting some Miami fans that have some very, very harsh opinions of Bryce Young.
Hey, I'd like to see it too. There's a few too many skeptical Alabama fans in that camp too, and I'm with you. Unleash Bryce Young. Let him go out there and play ball the way that he knows how to. You're not a 5-star out of Mater Dei, and considered one of the best to ever play at that high school out in California if you ain't something special. So I fully agree with that. AJ Spurr of Roll Tide Wire, the editor. Tell us what all you got going on at Tribe Sports Agency, Roll Tide Wire as well, AJ.
Well, Roll Tide Wire this upcoming week is doing all things Alabama UM, series history, photos from the past, what to expect, and, picks, predictions, and a whole lot more. Unfortunately, we were unable to secure a interview with the Bishop Sycamore head coach. However, we'll be talking all things college football, recruiting, and everything of those sorts. So we're really excited to get this season going. It's my first season as the site editor for Roll Tide Wire, part of USA Today. So, just very, very excited to hit the ground running and start out strong this season.
Hey, Bishop Sycamore, that's professional football. You got to stay in your lane, AJ. AJ Spurr, he's going to be helping us out on Tuesdays throughout the season, help us preview and review each and every one of Alabama Crimson Tide's opponents this year. AJ, we really appreciate it, man. Take it easy. Have a great rest of your week.
You do the same, boss. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. AJ Spurr, Roll Tide Wire, Tribe Sports Agency, so much more. That's the man. That's the dude, and he'll be with us every Tuesday, like I mentioned. We'll take a break. Continue the conversation. 205-342-9904. If you want to jump in the show, more than welcome to. Check us out on the streams as well. If you missed that interview, it'll be available on YouTube later as well as the podcast center and all the great places from Tide109.com as well. At Off the Edge 109, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're also on Instagram and TikTok if you're into that sort of thing as well. Plenty of things to enjoy with Off the Edge next here on Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama sports.
Has the pandemic affected your business? Even with more and more customers going online in the past 5 years, online business has grown greatly due to the pandemic. Now more than ever, it's important to have a strong online presence so that customers can find your business and products easily. That's where Townsquare comes in to help. Go to mylocalcustomers.com for a free competitive analysis to see how your business stands up to the competition. And if you're one of the first to sign up, you'll get $500 in free advertising on this radio station. That's mylocalcustomers.com. Townsquare Townsquare not only can help you find more local customers online, they'll also help you grow your business to a new level. With premium website services that get you new leads every day and no contracts to sign, there's no better time to join. Not only that, Townsquare also has a dedicated marketing specialist who will be with you every step of the way, making changes that will benefit you and especially your business. It's fast, easy, and you can cancel your subscription at any time. So hurry to mylocalcustomers.com and get your $500 in free advertising today.
Power your big ideas during Dell's Labor Day event by taking advantage of limited quantity deals. Save up to $300 on select Dell XPS computers and Alienware systems powered by Intel Core processors, and all with free shipping. Just call 800-BUY-DELL. That's 800-BUY-DELL.
Don't miss a play at the Sportsbook at Pearl River Resort. Your front row seat to all the action. Place bets on all professional and most college sports at the counter, kiosk, or on your phone. Then catch the game on one of our 20 big screens from the comfort of the newly remodeled Timeout Lounge. Plus, the PRR Sports app gives you access to live, in-play sports betting. Sportsbook at Pearl River Resort. Be more than a fan. Be a player. Must be 21.
Creamy nut butter makes it delightfully sweet. Roasted nuts make it perfectly salty. Get two great tastes in one delicious bar. Enjoy a Nature Valley sweet and salty nut bar today.
You're listening to Off the Edge on Tide 100.9.
We're back here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. You want to get to know your enemy a little bit better? Head on over to Tide109.com. And I've listed off 5 players that you need to know about heading into the matchup with the Alabama Crimson Tide and Miami Hurricanes in Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm excited for the game, man. There's a lot to look forward to. I think it's going to be a little bit more competitive on the field than the scoreboard will indicate. But that being said, there is one guy that I've mentioned quite a bit. It's on the offensive line. It's Zion Nelson. I'm hoping that today we get to speak with somebody on the defensive front, get their thoughts. Should have asked Phil about it yesterday, but nonetheless, get their thoughts on taking on this offensive line that has so much experience. 190 starts across the offensive line for the Miami Hurricanes, which is a college football record heading into this season. And it's led by Zion Nelson, who is ready to go. Manny Diaz said as much yesterday as well. But when you look at what Zion Nelson is capable of and what he's got to go against, you can look in those 190 starts. I'm not sure that the Miami Hurricanes have seen a pass rush anywhere near what Alabama brings to the table in 2021. And that's even if you're just speculating on, or that's even if you're just talking about Alabama's pass rush being as good as it was last year. Not the improvement that it's expected to have, right? You can ask anybody, how many sacks do you think Will Anderson and Chris Allen are going to have together? And most people are going to tell you 10 apiece, which is unprecedented in the Nick Saban era. This has not happened. Has not happened. Would be very, very exciting to see that. But you have to get off to a good start. And Zion Nelson, no scrub. Yes, I know he's been injured throughout the training camp session, but if that's a good left tackle, that's one piece that Miami definitely needs to try to, make a little bit of a dent in the talent gap that exists between the Hurricanes and between the Crimson Tide. AJ Spurr kind of touched on a little bit with Charleston Rambo. He's the number one for Miami. He's the number one wide receiver for the Hurricanes. Comes in with 76 receptions and almost 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 6'1", 185. He's kind of sneaky. He has sneaky length. He's good in those 50-50 balls if he needs to be. Has some good route running skills as well. But even with the talent that Miami returned at wide receiver, it's still 2 new guys kind of take over the core and are the 1 and 2 options. That should be a little bit concerning based off of, because here's the thing. I list off these 5 players from Miami. 3 of them are transfers. 3 of their best players didn't go to Miami out of the gate. They came to Miami in the transfer portal. Now, look, you can look at Alabama and be like, hey, Henry Toto is going to play a big role, and Jameson Williams is going to be a feature player. Alabama had to get those guys. Yeah, but you can look at the other 20 starters and know that they all committed to Alabama, and they were all, bought in and developed by Alabama. There's no hindrance in their development and those sorts of things. There's no gaps in their performances. And yet with guys like Charleston Rambo, it's like you come in and now you have to be ready to go take on Josh Jobe and do and have to handle that guy. I think that can be an easy first battle for Josh Jobe as the lockdown corner for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Feel pretty confidently with that. And on the defensive side, there's only really one name to know, and that's Bubba Bolden. He's the best player on their defense, big-time safety, and he's versatile, can play in the slot nickel and come down and kind of play a hybrid linebacker, strong safety or free, very versatile player. And with the weaknesses at linebacker that exist for this football team with the Hurricanes and the questions up front, the defensive backfield is probably the strongest point for the Hurricanes. But when you don't have a front 7, your defensive backfield is automatically worse. Because a defensive back can only do his job for so long. There's only so many routes that you can cover that turn into extended plays where you're just not going to be able to keep up. There's certain movements you expect from wide receivers in certain positions, but once the play breaks down because there's no pass rush and the quarterback's been standing there for 5 seconds, things happen to defensive backs, and it becomes very, very difficult. Not to mention the run game, where Alabama's going to have 4 guys who are going to be able to stay healthy throughout the game and stay fresh. You understand why AJ Spurr said that he feels so confidently that this game is actually going to be a little bit uglier. I anticipate more competitiveness simply because of what De'Aaron King brings to the table. Playmakers make plays. I think Charleston Rambo will make a few plays. They've got some running backs who can do their thing, and the offensive line experience may help them a little bit. But defensively, that's the game. The Hurricanes just don't have the defense to stand up to Alabama. Even with Alabama losing 8 starters, returning 3, having some question marks on the offensive line, even with Nick Saban asking for more consistency out of the supporting cast around Bryce Young, you kind of already have an idea of what Alabama is going to be capable of in the ball game, and it's all positive for them. There's so many negatives that kind of surround Miami in comparison to Alabama. Makes it very, very difficult to do anything but pick Alabama in the spread. I mean, 18.5 last night on FanDuel is what I saw. That is a very easy bet to make for me. That is a very easy bet to make. If I'm on a 3-team parlay or whatever, that's number one. That's like the one that I know I'm getting very confidently. But we'll take a break, come back, and close down the show here on Off the Edge on Tide 100.9. You're home for Alabama sports.
Start fall with everything to do business better during Dell Technologies Labor Day event. Save up to 45% on select business PCs with Windows 10 Pro. Power your workday with savings on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and other accessories, plus free shipping on everything. Do more with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro. Call 877-ASK-DELL for a Dell Technologies advisor who can help you find the right tech. That's 877-ASK-DELL for business specials during Dell's Labor Day event.
You know what happens in a plasma chamber?
Big stuff. Science stuff.
Diamonds. I'm Tom Osmond. Fincher & Osmond Jewelers carries artisan-created diamonds.
Earth and human safe.
And bigger. Lots bigger.
Fincher & Osmond diamonds from the mines or artisan-created diamonds.
They're all diamonds.
If you want to give her the big stuff, you've got to see these diamonds.
FincherandOsmond.com. A little tricky to find on McFarland Boulevard between Edgar's and Local Roots.
Has the pandemic affected your business? Even with more and more customers going online in the past 5 years, online business has grown greatly due to the pandemic. Now more than ever, it's important to have a strong online presence so that customers can find your business and products easily. That's where Townsquare comes in to help. Go to mylocalcustomers.com for a free competitive analysis to see how your business stands up to the competition. And if you're one of the first to sign up, you'll get $500 in free advertising on this radio station. That's mylocalcustomers.com.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Mostly cloudy and breezy, rain at times this afternoon and tonight. Today's high 77, the low tonight 69. Tomorrow, lingering showers ending early, becoming partly sunny, the high 80. Thursday, sunny and less humid, the high at 86. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 74 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Follow Off the Edge on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for live streams and instant analysis. Off the Edge with Jacob Harrison continues.
Put a wrap on a Tuesday and close it down with some Bryce Young audio. Yesterday, I asked Bryce Young about the comments that had continuously been coming up from Nick Saban, wanting that consistency around with the supporting cast around Bryce Young. We never really got any understanding as to what part of the offense was kind of, creating that inconsistency, whether it was the offensive line or it was the running backs or the wide receivers. And that wasn't really necessarily the intention of the question. It was to pull that out of Bryce. It was just to kind of get the confidence level of where he was with the camaraderie of his teammates and how this offense plans to attack the Miami Hurricanes. So here's Bryce Young talking about, how he feels about his teammates and his surrounding cast in the offense for the Alabama Crimson Tide in 2021.
Yeah, I have all the confidence in the world in my teammates. We are striving for consistency and we're striving for greatness, but it's not just one particular player, one particular group. Us as a whole, we all are working to be better each and every day, more consistent. So I have supreme confidence in all my teammates. They're guys that, really we've been able to come closer and grow together this offseason. So I have all the confidence in the world in the people I'm playing with. And we're all working towards that, that level of success and that standard that Saban sets for us collectively.
And that's kind of what I expected. That's kind of what I alluded to was it's not necessarily that anybody's playing bad. It's not that anybody is underperforming. It's probably that they're at 99% when Saban wants them at 100. There might be that one slip up that sticks out in Nick Saban's mind, but the players have kind of, forgotten about it. They're moved on. They're trying to work on getting better. And that's always the goal, is to continue to improve and to continue to get better, because that's how you combat the number 14 team in the country. It's not with feeling what's the word? It's not with getting complacent. It's not with just accepting that you're the best team in the country. It's not with standing idle and saying, well, we're number 1, they're number 14. On paper, everyone says that we're great. In the news, they say we're great. On the radio, that idiot from 11 a.m. until noon just props us up and says we're going to win by 3 touchdowns. And this is the best defense he's ever seen. And this offensive line, I mean, what a problem to have, to wonder if you should play your most experienced offensive lineman at center or right tackle. And Lord, the fact that he's versatile enough to do that. Aren't centers usually like 6'2"? Nah, bro, our center's 6'5" and he can play right tackle. Like, to shut all that out is a very hard thing to do. And that's what Nick Saban's been asking of his team. And sometimes he has to put things in perspective. You're good, but you've got to continue to work to be great. And when you're great, you've got to continue to work to be elite. And when you're elite, you got to continue to work to be perfect. And that's the trail that the Alabama Crimson Tide are on. And it starts in 4 days in Atlanta against the Miami Hurricanes. That's all for today. Jacob Harrison here, Bryant Horn behind the glass. Intern Michael, it's the best day in the world. He's rocking that Max Jones jersey. Hey, I hope you got a Patriots one because they're all sold out. Patriots Pro Shop is sold out of Patriots Mac Jones jerseys. That's all for today, though. The Jay Barker Show is up next. Ryan Fowler takes you home 2 to 6. Alabama tradition to follow. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Thank you for listening to Off the Edge.
Can't tell you